All right, here's another piece of news that would have been a massive piece of news, given in Sony form. Number 3, in a surprise post on the official PlayStation blog, Sony has officially discussed the next generation of PlayStation VR in some detail for the very first time. In the past, Sony has cursorily referenced it, and it has long been reported to exist via mostly Japanese reporters. I think Wall Street Journal in Japan often reports on it. In the post, Hideki Nishino, an SVP at PlayStation, says in part that he's, quote, pleased to share that our next generation VR system will be coming to PlayStation 5, enabling the ultimate entertainment experience with dramatic leaps in performance and interactivity. Players will feel an even greater sense of presence and become even more immersed in their game worlds once they put on the new headset, end quote. While the device isn't named, we'll call it PSVR 2 around here until it is named. Nishino did share some key details. Perhaps the most important is that the device will be tethered to PS5 by a single cord, both dashing the hopes of those who wanted a wireless headset while pleasing both potential and actual PSVR consumers by reducing a substantial amount of clutter. But there's more. Quote, one of the innovations we're excited about is our new VR controller, which will incorporate some of the key features found in DualSense wireless controller along with a focus on great ergonomics, end quote. In other words, we're about to say goodbye to PlayStation Move, the stubborn technology which first launched on PlayStation 3 in 2010. But don't get too excited. It's not coming out in 2021. Sony merely, quote, wanted to provide this early update to our fans as the development community has started to work on creating new worlds for you to explore in virtual reality, end quote. The original PSVR, launched for PlayStation 4 in October of 2016, is the best-selling virtual reality device of all time. Sony last confirmed the headset sales at 5 million at the end of 2019. It's likely in the 6+ million range now. It's worth noting that's far in excess of its competitors. So I want to say at the top, why do they talk about it? It's because it's going out. They say it's going out to teams. It's going to leak. So they want to get ahead of the game and let everyone know that it's coming. But Chris, what do you think about what they've told us? I mean, I think the three key pieces is no 2021, one wire, new controller.
Yeah, I mean, that's I think all good news. I think hopefully, Jesus Christ, hopefully by 2022 we've got this whole situation sorted. But so that gives some time for people to reacclimate to the world as usual, and hopefully by then they'll be able to manufacture these things without like hardcore supply constraints. It's a nice window of time between the launch of the PS5 and the launch of this next generation VR thing. I think that's about. I could be wrong, but I think I said like 2022 would be around the time that we would see it. So I feel pretty good about that. But the big thing to me is like, it's not even the wires to me, like whatever. The wires are like arbitrary. It's like VR is kind of cumbersome and tedious unless you have like a Quest anyway. Like it's kind of accepted that that's going to be a thing. But the new controller is a big deal to me because the PlayStation Move sucks. It's so old. It's, what is it, 2010, 2011?
Yeah, 2010. Yeah, 2010. It's September 2010, if I recall.
Yeah, it's ancient, and it feels ancient, especially when paired with the PSVR, which, 2016 to 2010 isn't necessarily that long of a time, but it feels like a really, really long time when you're holding and operating these pieces of technology that are from completely different eras that are just like working in tandem. Hopefully they can get something, maybe not exactly like the Valve Index, but maybe something along the lines of the Vive or something that's a little bit more robust and a little bit more friendly for some of the more innovative things that VR is capable of now, and some of the stuff that a lot of devs are trying to do now that base VR has been around for a while now. It's kind of weird to think about how long virtual reality as a concept has been like in consumers' hands. It's been a while.
Yeah. I think I first was exposed to Oculus at E3 in maybe 2012 or 2013 because I played Valkyrie. That was the first game I played on VR, and I was completely blown away by it. I'll never forget it just because I was like, I can't believe how cool this is. But then I never even played it when it came to PSVR.
Yeah, exactly. So. But no, the new controller is huge to me. That's the big takeaway from this.
Well, I like that news too, just because PSVR is fine. I like the weight of it and stuff, but it is old. I mean, it's so old that it's charged with like, 2 USB cables ago. It's just like very inconvenient, and asking people to have all these wires and stuff. It's just inelegant. The PS Move, I think, was a little underrated because it's so much better than the Wiimote. But by the time it came out, it didn't matter because no one gave a fuck about the Wiimote in 2010 and what it could do or couldn't do. Because remember the Wii Motion Plus, where we like added that weird thing to the bottom of the Wii and the Wiimote, and so they were trying to play in that space. And the same guy that made Richard Marx is his name, not the singer, but he's actually like an engineer at Sony. He created Move and VR. And so, or for PlayStation. So I imagine he's behind this new controller. What I thought was interesting in the verbiage about it was they were talking about ergonomics and all of that. And I picture what would be one of the many patents that Sony has filed in recent years, which is a controller that pulls apart and gets put back together, which I think would be pretty cool. Dustin, what do you make about what little Sony has said about PSVR 2?
I think it's really exciting because Sony, while they weren't the first VR headset, they definitely were the first ones to make it accessible to the mainstream, right? Like obviously was Oculus, but you needed a high-end PC for that. And I also believe that it was more expensive initially, but so it's exciting just because the PSVR, while maybe wasn't to the quality of some of those other headsets, was innovative in a lot of ways, especially I would say in the comfort department and how they design the headset. You now see Oculus, the latest version of the Rift, actually kind of copied the PlayStation VR design. So, and I think that some of the, we talked about the one cable, and I think that's just the start of some of the conveniences. I really think that this is going to have inside-out tracking, which is currently what the Quest and the latest Oculus use. So basically that means no more PlayStation camera requirement. There will be like infrared sensors on the headset itself and on the controllers. That's just going to make it like way, way easier and simpler to use, and will be a lot more accurate. That's one of the biggest things. Like as soon as you turn around in the PlayStation VR, it just like has no clue what's happening. But I guess the question I had for you guys thinking about this, because a lot of people have asked me this, whether it's in Discord or on Twitch, is asking about the price point, right? Because PlayStation VR launched, you got the two Move controllers, the camera, and the headset. I think there was two different bundles, but the main bundle was $500 when it came out. And now VR is in a completely different landscape where you can get a Quest 2 for $300, I believe, for the lower gigabyte version. And it's an all-in-one. You do not need a console. You don't need a PC. It's all just in the headset. And then you can plug it into, it works with a PC if you wanted to. So that's a huge value proposition. So to me, it seems like Sony needs to take that into account when they price this thing. I just don't know if they're getting away with 500 or maybe even 400 on this one.
Yeah, it's a good point. The VR unit was the same price as the console when it came out, which everyone was flabbergasted by.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I think it was 400. One bundle was 400, but I think it was confusing too because we got a bunch of stuff for free. So I didn't know. Kind of funny at the time. I didn't know like what was what, but I remember them being at least equivalent in price, and it was it's too expensive. But at the same time, I feel like, Kristen, I wonder what you think about this. I was kind of surprised by some people being upset about this idea of it still being tethered. To me, I was like, well, have you ever played a PSVR? Like, it's a fucking nightmare. There's the processing box, and there's cords coming out of every end of it, and the camera's hooked up. And I was like, this seems great to me. It seems like it would drop the price of it substantially by doing that. And I also feel like it allows it to more actively work off the power of the PS5, therefore future-proofing it. So to me, when I saw the wire, I was like, this is great news. I don't want it to be wireless because I don't know that that's the smartest thing. Although what Dustin's saying is that you could potentially have the best of both worlds. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's smart to work off of the power of the PlayStation 5 with the cable. I think that's there's no way Sony is going to manufacture a wireless VR unit that is powerful enough to satisfy the VR market while also being cheaper than the Quest. Like, I don't think they're going to be able to do that. So I think the best way to do something like this is like, yeah, you have something that's light and, just not cumbersome, but also has the benefit of working off of current gen, like proper, like really powerful hardware. And you know, I still do think the biggest barrier for VR is the cable. I do think that is because I have a Vive right now that I never use because I just know I feel this wire going down my back, and it's just kind of like, unless I'm like really in the mood for it, it's something that I'm gonna forego. But if I had like a Quest lying around, I'd probably use that every day, you know, just because of the convenience of it. So I understand like the desire for wireless VR, because I think that's where we all want to end up eventually. But I think for right now, and even in 2022, I think it's probably even better to kind of focus on relying on the PS5's power, because the PS5 is a powerful machine, and why not use that power base to maybe even go in at a lower price point than some other top of the line wireless VR headsets that are definitely going to be vying for people's attention.
Yeah, so I mean, the thing looks like a Cylon base star, so hopefully it has the power of one as well that they can grab stuff off of. But we actually got a question here from Joseph Barker that kind of builds on this, Chris. Let me just bounce it right back to you, because he says, "Hey, Colin, Chris, and maybe Dustin." He's here, Big D. "With Sony confirming this week a new VR headset in development for PS5, what improvements on the current headset would you like to see?" So Dustin already said this idea of, I think I scared him when I said his name, he said, you know, this idea of a cameraless kind of situation with infrared tracking and all of that, which I think sounds glorious. Sounds expensive, but it certainly sounds glorious. What would you like to see that we have? So we have the new controller, we have the tether. What is there something about VR that you would really like to see incorporated in this thing? Because I can answer it for you and say, like, they need to continue to support it as much as they've been supporting it now, because the hardware sounds great, but I have to give it up to Sony. They have supported PSVR. They've definitely kept releasing games for it. I mean, first party games, second party games, third party timed exclusives. That's got to keep coming. I think that's the big thing. It remains about the product.
I think what I'm going to want to see is, if you're going to have this unit that is going to be kind of for sale within your own kind of console ecosystem, because this isn't like a competing console, but it is like its own console in a way. Even if it does need the PS5 to function. And I would hope that, in the same way that IO Interactive kind of used Hitman 3 as kind of this weird vehicle to kind of like, hey, guess what? Hitman 3 exists and it's a great game, but if you want to play it in VR, you can do that now, and isn't that cool? I think it would be smart of Sony to like devote some amount of resources, either not even necessarily in the dev studios themselves at like Guerrilla or Insomniac themselves, but like maybe an extra team that kind of like goes in and kind of goes like, all right, what can we do in the VR space with this title that will entice people to maybe try this out? Because I think that's the biggest problem with VR right now, is just the lack of AAA. And you're probably never going to get a pure, or at least not for a long time, you're probably not going to get a pure VR like exclusive AAA game. I mean, it took us ages to get Half-Life Alyx, and even that was only possible because of the unique situation that Valve is in. So the compromise that I would say is just like, hey, you know what? When the next Uncharted comes out, have a solid Uncharted game, but also like maybe like a VR missions type deal with Uncharted, or something like Killzone with like a VR horde mode or something. Just something experimental within the first party that you can kind of point to and be like, if I get a PSVR 2, I'm not getting it just for the games. I'm getting it to enhance the games that I'm already looking forward to.
Yeah, that's very well said. I tend to agree. I feel like it's hard to at 6 million sold, it's hard to say like we're going to take one of our AAA studios that's, you know, think about Horizon sold like 10 or 12 million units. It's like you can't, there's twice as few, or 2 times. What am I trying to say here? Half as much, half as much VR units out there as there is, copies sold of Horizon. And I find that so fascinating. But at the same time, they dedicate Sony London and some others to VR projects, and Japan Studio, although it didn't bode very well for them. But we did hear that rumor recently, and we said it on the show. I certainly heard it. I don't know if it's been reported anywhere that Sony London seems to be changing too, internally. And if that's true, they're the other big external development, production, and some internal development studio. The guys that did like SingStar and stuff like that, and most recently Blood and Truth on VR. So it seems like maybe the VR unit was the death knell for some of them. PSVR was the death knell for Cambridge and others. So we'll see what happens. I'm interested in this. I will say this though, that the news of this makes it pretty certain that I'm just not going to even bother with VR now until the new one comes out, because now that I know that there's this elegant solution in the works, I'm like, well, I'm definitely not putting that thing back in the fucking garbage bin, So Andrew Arana wrote in. This doesn't belong in the garbage bin. I love PSVR. Andrew Arana wrote in though, and he does have an interesting question, more about the marketing. He's saying, "Hey guys, Andrew here. I see that, Andrew, because I said your name. I'm sure you'll be talking about this already, but I have to know why Sony made the lackluster announcement of PSVR 2. Is this saying it's a niche product, or is it them giving up before it's even out? As always, I love the content and will continue to support Chris's Snapple addiction." Well, we appreciate that. So at the top, I said, the reason I think that they're saying this, and just to reiterate, is because they say in the story, the dev kits are out, so now it's going to leak. And if it leaks, they'll at least have the initiative. But I will say this, I read an interesting point, and I wonder what you think of this, Dustin. I read a point that Sony saying this, because my first instinct was like, oh my God, like this fucking ugly, barren blog post. There's no images in it. It's like written by some dude you never heard of, or written in quotes by some dude you never heard of. But then someone said, Sony sold 6 million units of a piece of hardware, probably lost a lot of money on it, and is making another one. And they're doing this at a time when now we see they're cutting their studio resources back. And they're making very deliberate decisions. I really think Sony obviously we know this, but Sony believes in VR. And I still say what I said in 2015 and 2016. I still think it's a really smart bet. And I still think the future of PlayStation's VR initiative is going to be a standalone unit that Sony will have that will allow you to do many other things. I think PlayStation is still the proving ground. So Dustin, do you think that them saying this is a sign of weakness, or is it a sign of strength? Because I think it's a sign of some confidence, actually.
No, I don't think it's a sign of weakness at all. I think it clearly comes to the point that, as you said, the dev kits are going out and they know that stuff is going to start leaking. But I mean, Sony, from observing, the VR industry, as it's kind of blossomed into what it is now, I feel like they are in such a unique position, especially right now. Like the Oculus Quest 2 is like a surprisingly really successful product. It is priced so well at $300. There's tons of compelling software for it. And I feel like, Sony has that and more, right? Because they have that cachet of their first party lineup. Chris was talking about like some kind of Uncharted VR thing. And I think I said this last week, is that Sony, they had a lot of great first party support with PSVR, but they never fully put their money where their mouth is. So if they can get this product out and have it be a compelling price point that is comparable with the Quest 2 and have a killer lineup of first party IP attached, this really could be like the big breakout moment for VR, I think. It's all the stars aligning on this one.
That'd be awesome. I mean, it would be nice for it to come to fruition, just so we can at least see the non-gaming potential of it, which I still think is so enormous. I'll also note, we've been talking about things that we said, and I forget to bring this up, guys, but we had said just a week or two ago, there's persistent rumors that Guerrilla might be making a Horizon, or rather that a studio might be spinning off with Guerrilla's blessing, I guess, a newer studio to make a Horizon VR game. And I wouldn't be surprised if that were true. In fact, I feel like Horizon's perfect for that. If you think about it, not in the third person action, but maybe Aloy hunting dinosaurs or doing other things. Maybe it's in first person, and it's very exciting to think about the possibilities. I think they need to be brave enough, although it's risky. I think they need to be brave enough to do kind of what they did with Until Dawn, which was to say, like, we're going to make an Until Dawn game, or Supermassive is going to make an Until Dawn VR game, but it's an on rails shooter basically. Like, that's kind of bold, and it's not a great idea. It's a very natural idea for VR. But what I'm saying, like, if it's to Chris's point, I think you guys make great points. Do something a little different with what you already have, and don't try to couple up on it, and you'll be good. And I think people are eager in the PlayStation ecosystem to support this. But I'll also note that especially with Oculus, this is a Facebook-owned company and a Facebook-backed company, and they have enormous amounts of money, much more money to throw at this than Sony does. And it's clear that they're doing that. In fact, we'll remember that they acquired 2 Sony second-party studios in the last couple of years, in Ready at Dawn and Sanzaru. So they have a lot of competition, so that they're willing to stay here knowing they're going to fight Valve, knowing they're going to fight Facebook for dominance, and knowing that they have a huge foothold with a console that is very popular. Worth noting that actually PS4 or PS5 seems to be outselling PS4 so far, according to Jim Ryan, which is pretty remarkable. So
yeah,
we will see. We will see indeed. So that's the second piece of non-state of play news that would have been the first story overall. Let's do another one.
Yeah.
That in a normal week would have been a number one overall. We still have a few more of them to go through.
Yeah.
This is a crazy week. It's a crazy week.
It's wild.
In fact, Dustin, I'm going to say this right now. People will know this by the time they get to this part of the episode, but I want this episode published immediately. You know how we usually hold them overnight? And every once in a while we publish it right away when it's ready? We're going to do that with this episode. It's too big to hold back.
Okay.
It's kind of like my dick.
That.
That was a little perverted, wasn't it?
A little bit.
Just surprise someone in the car with their kid.